Hi Jane, how are you?
I'm good, Chelsea. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat to me today. So I think it's really interesting sort of how far we've come. And I know when I first joined the Executive Center, you were one of the people that helped me the most understand so much about the way that the business has sort of evolved over time and has really put a lot of thought and effort into defining, what's this new evolution of the Executive Center. So I thought maybe we could start there. Just from your perspective, being in TEC for how many years now?
10 years.
10 years.
Or 11
See,
years.
11 years. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I'd love to hear from your perspective, how you have seen the brand change, from when you first joined the Executive Center to where we are now.
Well, I have to say it has changed a lot. And obviously, we have improved a lot. So about 11 years ago, when I joined the TEC, actually back in Beijing, during my training, I was taught that the company was more focused on word of mouth instead of doing frequent and big marketing campaigns. So the client refer clients, and then the colleagues refer clients. It's like the clients come from a small circle or small communities. By then, we were not that big. For example, in Beijing, by then there was only 3 centers, and now we're 11, right? I think for China and also for the group, we have expanded our network very rapidly during these 10, 11 years. And the recent years, actually after you joined, the marketing team has become so much bigger, and the performance is so much stronger. And we have been, what I can see, that we have been improving from all aspects from the marketing strategies of the company.
It's so interesting to me because so often people think about marketing and sales as 2 separate entities when in reality they're very interconnected with one another, because obviously marketing has lots of different elements that are a part of it, but ultimately our goal is to build brand awareness, to make people understand what our positioning is in the market, to differentiate ourselves from our competitors, and ultimately to drive leads to the sales teams, right? So that you can continue to build business and increase profitability, et cetera. So I'd love to know from your perspective, what do you see the relationship being between marketing and sales?
The investment we made on marketing, I think we often have a kind of debate that how much we should invest on marketing and what would be the return that we can achieve. And the return for TEC would be, how many leads that could be generated, and then accordingly, how much revenue that can be generated from a marketing campaign. So we always try to balance that. As far as I understand, we don't want to overspend, but we don't want to be like so silent on all the marketing channels and only relying on sales team, cold calling or knock at the door. So, or like sales pitch. So we have to find a good balance between how much we invest on marketing and what we expect as the return.
That term ROI, it's something that people always question. And I think one of the challenges from a marketing perspective is, what does that mean, right? Because you're talking right now about the tangible ROI, which is obviously so important, right? So how much money do we invest? How many leads does that generate? And then how much revenue is generated as a result of those leads? And what's the comparison, right? And obviously the goal is to generate significantly more revenue for the amount of money that's invested. But I think one of the challenges is that the intangible side of marketing, such as, the investment that you put into things like PR coverage and content creation and platforms and things like that, because it's a lot less easy, or more difficult, I should say, to directly attribute the amount of money and effort that's put into those kinds of initiatives to the amount of revenue that's generated. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the softer, sort of more intangible side of marketing as it relates to the growth of business and revenue.
It's not easy to evaluate the direct return, right? The ROI is difficult to really quantify how much we invest and how much we got it as a return. And for short term, it is still very important. It is essential because it helps us to determine or to evaluate if our marketing strategy is effective enough, or if the money we have spent are well spent. So, but for long term, I think the true marketing ROI is also related to, for example, the client engagement, client satisfaction, and most importantly is the brand awareness. And that is a long-term thing.
I remember when I joined in 2017, one of the things that the first sort of journeys that we all went on together was to try and define or redefine what does the Executive Center stand for on a group level. And I remember we went around and asked different stakeholders from all the different regions and from different departments, define the Executive Center, what does it stand for you? We got a lot of different answers and we said, now we've got some work to do to try and collectively understand what does this brand represent and where does it fit within the competitive set. So I think we did a really good job of kind of creating that larger overarching brand identity for the Executive Center. And then from there, we took a step forward and said, okay, now how do we maintain that brand consistency and that message across all of our regions, but then adapt to the different channels that are that are localized and that people use in those different regions. So I was curious to know when we had those conversations, what was one of the biggest shifts from a positioning perspective that you saw from what the brand was before sort of the marketing team started and as to where we've come now?
I think the first marketing campaign, or if we may call it a rebranding, you guys upgrade the logos, the font, the letterhead, the TEC souvenir, and proposal format, agreement format, and the website. That's a lot of changes. That's refresh the look and feel of our brand, indeed, and make it more, much more standardized among the group. And we present a new product with a new design features, ideas, barista bar, and open up receptions. That's also part of the rebranding. That's what I would say, showcase our expertise and also how we evolve with the market trend and the client demand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that the idea, what I love about the Executive Center is that everything about our brand is always evolving and we're not a static company. And I think the current environment in which we exist is just a true testament to that, right? I mean, things have changed so dramatically over the last 6 months in terms of how do we operate our centers. There are so many different levels of compliance, especially for you guys in China, in terms of how to keep the centers open and what parameters do we have to fit within to be able to work in this very different sort of environment that nobody's ever really encountered before. And I personally have been super impressed with the way that all of the teams have been able to adapt so quickly. It's kind of ironic that we work in the flexible workspace industry because it's been a true testament to our knowledge of how to be able to quickly change to the environmental stimulus that exists. And so I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are on that. But from a marketing perspective, it's been really interesting because we've also had to pivot our messaging to really start talking about what are all of these steps that we're taking to ensure that our clients and our members are safe, that we can create spaces for people within all of these new parameters that adhere to the World Health Organization standards, that comply with all the local government mandates. So I'd love to know what you think, both from a sales and marketing perspective, in terms of, the last 6 months and everything that's been going on with COVID, how the brand has been able to react to that.
In terms of what we were doing during COVID, and then we're telling clients what we do and how we do it. So through different ways. For example, we are, of course, the daily conversation between the operation team, the sales team to their clients, that's happening all the time. And the clients can clearly see that we have all the precautions measures like presented at the reception, and then we're doing the regular check and cleanings, and then we provide the masks. And also we have organized the community event or basically online webinar. And last time Paul did a conference internally and telling us about the health guidance from the official organizations. So all of that, we have passed the messages to the clients or to the potential clients for China is through WeChat channels, like the WeChat accounts. There we're sending all these messages, and then through the community campaigns online, most of them online campaigns, and the direct mailing to clients, and also the daily communications with clients.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think these last 6 months specifically have been a really awesome example of the inextricable link between, the marketing team, which really acts as sort of the communications agency for all of the different regions and all of our centers, and the people that are actually on the ground, because we would never have been able to create any of those messaging or any of that material for you guys if you didn't inform us of what was going on. And I think in some organizations, that's where there's always a big disconnect, right? Is the marketing team is doing one thing when in actuality, what's really needed in the markets is something totally different. It's because there's no communication there. So I'm really grateful that we're able to have conversations like this with you and with different members of the team on a regular basis to make sure that we're actually creating things that you guys need. That was one of the big goals this year, 2020, was to not only continue to create really interesting content that pushes brand awareness and that, gives people a better understanding of who TEC is, but also to create more content and more platforms that actually serve the local teams in different ways. So I think the VR platform is an interesting sort of innovation that came out of conversations with the local team.
Exactly, because we're talking about COVID. I think from sales perspective, what marketing contributed, not the most, but the most effective ones is all this video product, I would say. The VR, the short videos, all the videos or animations about, for example, enterprise solutions, the flexible space benefits, or all the TEC features, and along with the VR, the virtual tour tools, that the team has been using it like every day. And that really helps the business, and especially helps during the sales process during the COVID time. Especially right now, China, I have to say, we kind of resumed to a normal business life, and travelings are also resumed. But in the previous few months, and people, even though they could, and they refused to travel. So all these videos and pictures, profiles, and VR products have been very helpful. And I think that will continue to be used.
What do you think marketing and sales have to learn from each other? Like, what are some things that we can learn from each other's teams and from our own business verticals?
We touched base a little bit earlier. I think as a marketing department, even though you're looking at the global marketing strategy, but you have to understand a specific market situation. Like China has China specifics, or the China client has their characters, right? So understanding the local culture and the local market situation, that would be very important.
So helpful to have these conversations with the people that are actually working with the clients to understand, those videos, they weren't our ideas initially, right? Some of them were, but not all of them. We created them, but the impetus came because somebody that had that specific need and said, hey, this tool would be really useful for us to be able to sell this product better or explain our products more concisely or reach new audiences because we can't travel or whatever. And so I think for us, that's a really fundamental piece of having a good marketing strategy, is being able to run these ideas by the people that are in the field every day dealing with the clients. So again, really appreciate all of the time that you guys take to send us feedback, and that I'm glad to hear that the things that we're creating are helpful to your team.